Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today, I have my guest, Rose Jones. How are you doing, Rose?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. You are a stay-at-home mom,
Yes,
and you homeschool your kids.
I do.
How long have you been a stay-at-home mom?
10 years.
Wow. So I've been a stay-at-home dad for 10 years. And one thing that I always talk about with my wife, with my friends is, hey, I don't know anybody that is a stay-at-home parent. I
I
don't
don't
have
either.
anybody I can identify with.
Yeah.
And so you have a lot of, you don't have a whole lot of stay-at-home mom friends or
No.
stay-at-home dad friends.
Mm-mm.
I wonder why that is. I wonder why everybody feels like they got to work these days.
Uh, I don't know. I think we chose it money wise. And
Yeah.
then when our son got diagnosed with autism, we just felt that that was better for me to be there and help him through those things, plus all the therapy. And
Yeah, so your son needed extra care that otherwise might be expensive to get outside the home. So you decided to be a stay-at-home parent. And that's kind of how I became a stay-at-home parent myself. It was more with I was tired of working, to be honest with you, and I missed out a lot on my kids, my family time. I was on the road a lot. I did construction, and I was away from home all the time. And so I wanted to take a little break, and I talked to my wife, and she's like, well, if you want to take a break, then I'd like to go back to school and advance my career. So that's the route we went. And it just turns out I never went back to work, and we kept having children. So when our youngest was born, man, it was hard because I was working at that point, and it was it was a full-time job, but it wasn't like a hard job like I was used to. It wasn't construction or anything like that. I was talking on the phones and asking people, do like telemarketing.
Mhm.
And my wife here had some difficulties taking care of our youngest boy and going back to work as he was a baby. And she's like, "Oh, man, I'd really like to have some help." And I was like, well, I don't like working anyway, so I'll quit and stay at home. And then he was diagnosed with autism when he was 2. And so it was difficult for us in the very beginning, and then we got a diagnosis, and then it was like, okay, well, now that we've got a diagnosis, we can move on and learn how to parent him better, because it was like, we love him and it wasn't difficult per se, but we had difficulty communicating with him.
Right.
And so raising him in a way that was happy for him was my thing. I wanted him to be happy.
Right.
And I also wanted him to be smart and articulate. And you homeschool your kids, right?
Yeah.
And so how old are they, if you don't mind me asking?
My oldest Wyatt is 10. Then I have Cole, who's 8. And then I have a daughter who just turned 5.
Oh, man. So you've got boys and a girl.
Yes.
That's awesome. I've got 3 boys, and I've got my oldest daughter. She's 21. And and I've also got a grandbaby now. That's pretty exciting. I'm old enough to be a granddaddy. So that's awesome. So what's homeschooling your kids like?
So we use the K-12 program.
Yeah.
And here it's called, so K-12 is like national, but we're in Missouri, so we have MOVA. And at first I was nervous. And actually I'm getting ready to homeschool my daughter now in kindergarten. My boys didn't start homeschooling till first grade. So I'm nervous about that transition to, because in kindergarten they don't necessarily know how to read yet.
Yes, and that's where it's advantageous to have professional help. But so that's where a professional help comes in handy is like where you're trying to teach communication and letter identification and sentence construction and putting all that stuff together to learn how to read. I don't know if I have the patience for that. And it's intimidating as hell, like you were saying.
Yeah.
You're very nervous about it. But man, the thing that I worry about the most is the social aspect of the
Yes.
school. We don't, so where we live, we don't have, it's not a big city. Like, I don't even know if Kansas City has anything like what I'm talking about, but there's no homeschool programs that have outside clubs or like dances or anything like that. There's no organization to where you can get the kids all together from homeschool and do something like a prom or anything like that. So
Right.
I worry about the social aspect. And as I didn't think it'd be that big of a deal to our 14-year-old son, I didn't think it'd be that big of a deal to him because he doesn't really talk to a whole lot of friends outside of school. And that's why it is a big deal to him
Yeah.
because he doesn't talk to many people outside of school. So he's like,
Right.
I don't want to lose that lifeline to my friends. I
Yeah.
don't want to lose that social structure. And so I was like, well, you better pull your head out of your ass and learn,
Yeah.
and it's difficult though, because ever since COVID and the lockdowns, it seems like the kids are having difficulty adjusting back to school, and worse than that, the schools are having a hard time adjusting back to the kids.
Yes. I think so too.
It's difficult to watch because when you try to intervene, when you try to say something, it goes in one ear and out the other,
Yeah.
and I feel so unheard all the time. I feel like nobody cares about my kids.
Yep.
And I can't say that too much about Rocket because, boy, his preschool teacher was a saint. I love her to death, and she was the most amazing teacher, and she's been a friend to us more than a teacher. Like we haven't hung out outside of school or anything like
Right.
that, but I'm not opposed to it. She's been a very good teacher with him, and she had him for 2 years, and she really loved having him in class, and all the kids that she teaches, she tries to reach them, each kid, and it's very, you don't see that a whole lot.
Yeah.
And so it's very refreshing to see someone like that in special education.
Yes.
So it's very awesome to have that. But then with middle school, and now our middle son, he's going into high school now, and he's so not prepared.
Yeah.
He's so not prepared. And so in him not being prepared, is the school prepared for
Right.
having a bunch of kids that aren't prepared for high school? Because
Right.
look what happened to them.
So do you mean like educationally or like social emotionally or all of it?
All of the above. Like social emotionally, we had a difficult time. We thought we were going to have a difficult time transitioning from elementary to middle school, and then that's when the lockdowns happened. So it just made it worse.
Yeah.
And then with our son, we had one in high school already, and so he had a difficult time focusing getting back into school, but it was his last year, so he didn't really care. And he graduated, thank goodness, but by the skin of his teeth,
Yeah.
And the middle son, he's just now acclimating to middle school after all that, and they were doing remote learning for so long, and then for snow days last year, they were doing remote learning, and they just stopped doing that this year, and we're going back to snow days until they ran out of snow days, and then they
Yeah.
do remote learning. But that's not very conducive to a kid that's used to doing it one way, and then they're switching back and forth. It's not helpful.
Right.
What is the most difficult thing that you find with homeschooling?
The social part is
Yeah.
harder. There are a couple groups on Facebook for homeschooling, and they do a couple things outside. I know they all went to, there was like a SpongeBob musical or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. And excuse me. So they did that. I didn't participate in that, but I struggle with anxiety. So like I've been a stay-at-home mom so long, I have a hard time like
Oh,
putting
absolutely.
myself out there and
Absolutely.
coming up with adult conversation. I don't get that a lot.
Yes. Yes.
But my oldest likes soccer. He's kind of found his thing, so he does a soccer camp and gets some social from that. But definitely, I still don't feel like they get enough social.
Yeah, and I'm sure with some of those programs comes you could maybe conversate and get close to some of those parents.
Yeah.
But where I run into trouble is don't I don't fit in. I really don't. I'm kind of different. I can get along with everybody, but it's like people get to know me. They either like me or they don't.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where if they don't like me, they don't want to be around, or they don't want me to be around. I'm opinionated, but I'm a easygoing guy. But I don't insert myself like so. Let's just say like a sporting event with my kids. I don't get involved with that. I would go and I'd watch, but I'm not a coach. I'm not a professional, so I'd kind of sit back and watch and let them kind of have fun.
Yeah.
And I'm not the kind of parent to jump up and yell and scream and get it animated over that. I'll be like, attaboy, cheering everybody on, but
Right.
I'm not that kind of parent, and I'm not the overly excited parent either. Like there are some times where I'd be like, I don't want to be here. Like, and I'd be gruff and I feel like I don't fit in. But the more I put myself out there, the more I find there's a lot more people like me than I realize.
Yeah, I kind
And
of have that same. I feel like I'm not gonna fit in, or I'm
right.
gonna say something they're gonna think I'm crazy. Or
Or I'm going to make somebody mad. We were just
Yeah.
talking about before we started recording, we were just talking about self-censorship and discussing certain things that might offend people or might make others uncomfortable. And so I didn't really care about that until we started the show.
Yeah.
And then it was like, man, I kind of got to watch what I say now because what I say impacts other people.
Right.
It's not just myself.
Right.
So, and it wasn't just myself before. I'm also bringing my kids up in this environment also.
Right.
And so the idea for Coffee with Bearded Bad Dad came up because, man, I thought I'd be good at podcasting. Everybody else thought I'd be good at podcasting. It's what I think about. It's what I do. I listen to podcasts all day long. And
Yeah.
I'm just soaking up information all the time. And so I wanted to share my experiences with other people. And I've been a stay-at-home dad for so long that my kids are my life. So it's I talk about them a lot. And I talk about them a lot on the show. And I talk about parenting. Unconventional parenting is what I call it. I don't, with our kids, I don't know if I could really do homeschool because of the social aspect, because we don't really do much social outside of like, I don't get together with other kids as parents. Like
Yeah, I don't either.
I love my kids. Just, I'm not a big fan of other people's kids. If that makes sense?
No, I get it. I've always done great with like all kids. 'Cause
Yeah.
before I had kids, I was like in daycare, working, doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
I couldn't see myself working at a daycare. That'd be kind of weird. Like they see this big old guy with a big old scary man. I bet they'd listen real well to me though.
yeah, probably.
But I know I could never do anything like that. I don't. But that's kind of like going on field trips and stuff. Like I ask my wife to go, and I don't like to go do those things. I was forced to go on a camping trip, a Boy Scout camping trip with my oldest son. Man, you want to talk about uncomfortable. Like these people were like the religious type of people. And I didn't like, I cuss like a sailor. I'm very offensive. And like, I had to behave myself all weekend long. It was torture. And it was like you couldn't drink, you couldn't smoke, you couldn't swear. And there was lots of little kids running around. You had to be careful what you said. You couldn't kick any of them. It was rough. And so it was one of those things I didn't want to do, but I did it to avoid a confrontation with my ex-wife. So
Yeah.
it,
You're like one of the parents hiding behind the tree smoking.
no, I went to my car. You couldn't smoke inside the Boy Scout camp. And I smoker, and I talked to my ex-wife, and I was like, well, I'm a smoker. That's why I can't go. I'm a smoker. And she's like, no, you can totally ask them to watch the kid, and you can go to your car and smoke. And I was like,
Oh, so
damn
you
it.
didn't like have to hide around the,
No.
like, so my anxiety, like I do that in general, like, because I guess I'm always like worried, like, well, I've been told I look really young.
Yeah.
And so people are always side-eyeing me.
Yeah.
Like, are you old enough to smoke? And then also because like I worry like people judge me because I have kids and I smoke. And
Where
even
are you
though
from?
Here.
You're from here, and
Yeah.
you worry about those things?
I do, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's so we're in the Midwest, and we're just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Kansas City. And so I don't hear that a whole lot. People worried about judgment around here. Like that kind of judgment. Do you know, like, a lot of people smoke around here? Like, this is where
Yeah.
the majority of cigarettes are sold in the United States,
Yeah.
is Missouri. So it's I don't think I guess I do worry about that sometimes as I'm driving down the road smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
My kids are in the car. Like, I do worry about that because I think about it as well, and I'm like, throw it out or whatever, and I feel guilty. But so I guess I worry about those things too. It's
Yeah.
kind of,
I always tell my husband my anxiety has no rhyme or reason. I just worry about things that
man, I should start telling my wife that, because I get anxious all the time. I told her I was nervous about this podcast, and I was nervous before you came over. She's like, why? And I was like, I'm sending off emails to people I don't know. I'm asking people to be on the show. People are asking me to be on the show. I'm talking to this person and doing that. And I'm just like, it's weird because I've never had a demand for my attention like this, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's always been the people inside my little bubble here that have always demanded my attention.
Right.
And then when I get, I wake up to emails and I'm like, wow, I've got, a couple messages to respond to. And then I see in my text messages, I've got 17 text messages to respond to. And it's so weird.
Big change.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And it's exciting though.
Yeah.
I mean, I have all those anxiety issues myself. Like right now I have a towel in my lap because my hands sweat.
Yeah.
And so I'm just nervous. I'm sitting here holding my towel and getting it all wet and stuff.
So have you always been like that, or do you think that came when being a stay-at-home parent?
No, I've always been like that. My
Always.
hands have always sweat like that. And I've always been socially awkward too. I always worry about, man, I'm going to sound like an idiot. And I do a lot of the same things I accuse my kids of doing, is inserting myself in situations and changing them to be what I want them to be. Like I'll walk into a middle of a conversation and then they'll be talking about something. I'll change the subject.
Yeah.
But at that point, everybody does. Everybody just follows me. I walk into a room and people follow me for some reason. And it was never like that up until the last probably 5 years or so. People, like, I've always been invisible. Like
Yeah.
nobody really paid attention to me up until the last 5 years or so. People have kind of been looking at me as more of a leader because, well, I took a chance, and I guess when my mom died and I started being honest with a lot of people,
Yeah.
I started being honest with myself most of all, and just allowing that vulnerability. I make it easy for people to talk to me.
Yeah.
And I think that helps.
Yeah.
And it helps me get outside of my anxieties. But to be honest with you, pushing the boundaries with my anxieties feels good.
Yeah.
It's very addicting.
Yeah.
It's like a never-ending thrill ride. It's because you get so nervous and so scared, and then the things like happen, and then afterwards you're like, wow, what a rush,
Yeah.
And it's like this podcast. Like it's very nerve-wracking to start. You don't know how to talk to each other.
Right.
You're meeting people for the first time. You just want it to be a casual conversation.
Yeah.
That's really all it is. Like people are listening, people are watching, but I don't pay attention to that. That's later on.
Right.
And not a whole lot of people watch right now anyway. So I'm counting on a lot of people coming in and being part of the show, but whatever.
Yeah.
So we won't talk about like what your husband or where your husband works, but what's he do? Is he So is he like, does he work like in a factory?
Yeah.
Okay.
He has 2 jobs.
2 jobs.
He works 2 jobs.
So he works factory on one job. What's he do for the second job?
Warehouse.
Okay.
In a
So
warehouse. Yeah.
pretty similar jobs there.
Yeah.
Labor.
Yeah.
My wife has 2 jobs as well. She works in management in one job, and she is on the bottom rung of the ladder on the other job. So it's a strange thing that we had to do. It's very hard to watch my wife work 2 jobs while I sit at home. I feel very guilty about that a lot.
I do too.
It's rough. But then you think about it. You're looking for jobs, and you think about applying, and then you're like, I can't go back to work. I
Yeah.
don't want to. It's very rough because then your anxiety goes crazy.
Yeah.
We're broke right now. We're struggling. The bills are paid,
Right.
but that's it. We
Right.
don't have any extra money. We can't go on vacation,
Right.
and if an emergency happened, I don't know if we have the money to pay for it.
Right.
So to me, that's broke.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to watch my wife work like that and struggle. And I know it's very difficult for her to see what I'm doing, and she's like, well, you're having all the fun, and
Yeah.
I have to go put at work while you sleep in, and it's not I carry a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And I carry enough stress for the both of us.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to explain that to people that don't go through it.
No, I completely understand.
It's weird, isn't it?
It is.
It's so with your family, is it like you want to help out financially, but it would come at a cost of losing everything?
So yeah, because I homeschool
Right.
and do those things, it would definitely affect that. So I wouldn't be able to homeschool.
In my experience, it would cost more money.
Yeah.
It would cost more money to do what I do
Yeah.
than it would pay me to work.
Yeah.
So with daycare,
Right.
daycare
Yeah.
was for just one kid, I think it's like $250 a week right now.
Oh, yeah,
And
it's-
that's for just daycare. That's not like a private,
Right.
that's not like with a curriculum or anything like that. That's just
Right.
daycare where you don't know the people that are raising your kids.
Right.
You're dropping them off. You don't know what the other kids are doing to them, and I can't do that as a dad,
Right.
None of my kids have been raised that way, thank God.
That's how it started out for me. I felt guilty, but I felt like if I worked, I'd put my whole paycheck into daycare,
Right.
or something along those lines. So that's kind of how it started for me. But now with my boys being in the homeschool, they're doing so well. I mean,
Right.
they have IEPs, they have special education. When I say I homeschool, I don't just do it all myself. They have teachers as well. They have a special education teacher.
Right.
They have therapies, all virtually, and those kinds of things. So, but if I'm not there to keep them on task or, to help them through,
But
I don't-
they can do school from anywhere. Does it have to be at home?
no, yeah, they could do it from anywhere. Any that has Wi-Fi, yeah.
Now that's awesome. So
Yeah.
I have hotspot on my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the type of guy where if I needed to get out myself, I would be like, pack up your laptop. We're going on the road. I go sit in a park somewhere,
Yeah,
and we'd have school there, or on vacations. Like
Yeah.
we have in the past, what we've done is if I want to go on vacation, it is better to ask for forgiveness than permission with the school system. However, if I want to go in the good graces of the school system, what I do is I go talk to the schools individually with each kid. I go and I'm like, look, I want to go on vacation. This is where we're going. This is what we're doing. Is there any way I can get the lesson plans for that week or two, however long we're going to be gone?
right.
And I've never had a situation where they said no.
Right.
So I've always been thankful for that. But since we are able to do that stuff like that, I wonder if I'd be good at it. But during the lockdowns, I struggled with the school part of it because I don't want to be involved really. I'm not a teacher. I don't, I find it difficult to teach them things that I'm not interested in. And
Right.
so I'd be teaching them all about World War II and,
Right.
World War One and world history and American history and skipping over math and all that stuff. So I,
There's so much help though, like with the program. Like my oldest, he started struggling a little bit with math, and I could text his special education teacher. She'd do one-on-one help sessions.
that's awesome.
Now I chose to kind of refresh my memory, but I also had to learn because they teach math differently.
Yeah.
So I was like, I know how I did it. I don't know how he's supposed to do it.
Right.
And so I sat with him and learned how to do it too, which I think he thought that was pretty cool. Like, my mom has to learn from a teacher.
Absolutely. Yeah. My wife and I were discussing that very thing is like, hey, if it's interesting, I might sit down and learn with him.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's pretty cool too because it's just so interesting to be like, oh yeah, I kind of do remember that, like learning that.
Yeah.
Or,
It's like a refresher course.
yeah. And that's when I told my husband, I was like, man, I should be taking advantage of this. Like while I'm refreshing on this, I should be taking like night classes or
Right.
something.
Right. When you're in when you're in the zone
Yeah.
of learning. And I find it gets easier to learn as an adult because the information that you're looking at, why you need to learn that.
Yeah.
So when you're a kid, you don't really, I'm never going to use this. Well, you are probably, like doing your taxes. You could use algebra doing taxes.
Right.
So I count on the public school system a lot to teach my kids things that they want them to learn because the things I want them to learn are all life related.
Right.
I don't really care if they get into science, math, reading, or anything like that. As long as they understand the basics, it's about what they're going to do when they're older. Since this is an economic-driven world that we live in, I worry about them being productive.
Right.
I worry about them having money.
Right.
And if we can't all go to art school and study art and get paid for it. Not everybody can have a podcast and make money that way.
Right.
And so I worry about the world needs ditch diggers too. Let's not forget that. And let's not teaching them trades and stuff like that. There is a purpose for all that. And it comes down to the strength of a nation, honestly. Mm-hmm. I think ultimately, if we didn't have countries and governments and stuff like that, it'd be a lot different.
Yeah.
We'd be able to pursue things that didn't make financial sense and be okay with it. But the world that we live in is so economic driven that I do worry about them being productive. I worry about them earning money and surviving.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
and that's where education comes in. And I don't know if I have the patience to be a homeschool teacher, but how many other parents, do you know any other parents that do homeschooling?
Just that I've seen on
Online.
Facebook. Yeah.
So I wonder if there is a demand, because I know I was speaking with somebody within our school district that was worried that they have middle school retention rates are down. Mm-hmm. And they're I don't really want to, I'm paraphrasing here because I don't want to get on the record and say something that's not true. I'm paraphrasing here. She said they were having difficulties retaining students in middle school because they were going to homeschool. And
I think it's definitely on the rise.
yeah, and I don't know. I think they we went to the middle school was ran like a mental institution. It's what it seemed like. It seemed like it was crazy. When the bell went off, it was so much madness in there, and it was wall to wall people. There was so many kids in that school. It was so ridiculous. And I'm like, none of them washed their hands, and you worry about that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But So I do worry about that social aspect.
Yeah.
But there's probably a lot of freedom that comes along with homeschooling as well. You can pick and choose your curriculum, you know?
Well, with Kate, with what we do, it's pretty much laid out for us. But
There's a basic curriculum, but if you
right,
want more of a curriculum, you can absolutely search that out and
right,
make that part of your curriculum.
right. There is some freedom to it there
Yeah.
for sure, Or if there's like, meltdowns and
Yeah.
things, they're super awesome with working with that.
That's
Like
awesome.
it's amazing. I personally love it. So my
So
kids love it.
with our son, that's our autistic son, he is 5. He will be 5 at the end of this month. We aren't going to take him out of public school right
Yeah.
now. He needs professional help. There is no way I could do that with him. Because I have a hard time not being nice to him. Like, he looks at me and he's so cute. I can't, he walks all over me sometimes. You know, it's so difficult sometimes to get him on task. I don't
Yeah.
think I'd be able to do it alone.
Yeah.
And that's part of what they're teaching him in
Yes.
school. And so there may be a point where I may be able to do it myself, but why? They're doing such a good job with him right now. I
Yeah.
don't see a point in taking him out. But with my middle school age son, it's difficult to watch him struggle in the way he is, and
Yeah.
and not having anybody that wants to help him.
Right.
Like we've talked to a few teachers that talk a good talk, but when it comes to walking the walk, it's like, well, which kid is he?
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it sucks sometimes watching him struggle like that. And then
Yeah.
you get in a spot where you can't really punish him either, because I don't really, what are you punishing him for? He's a
Right.
good kid. He doesn't go to school and misbehave. He just doesn't do his homework. Like,
Yeah.
how do you punish him for that?
Right.
We do grounding, we do the, chores and stuff like that, but ultimately that's not going to work.
Right.
Like, if he doesn't want it to work, it's not going to work.
Right.
And he's got to want to be good too. So there's the discipline aspect of it. And he did pass this year. I was worried about that. He did pass. So we don't have the struggles that a lot of people have with behavioral issues out of our teenage son. He's pretty well behaved, and but he's just sometimes he just doesn't want to do homework stuff, and he's got severe ADHD, and it doesn't cause him to misbehave or anything like that. It doesn't really. He's not stupid or dumb. He just doesn't have any patience to do
Yeah.
things other than what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So, like, if it's video games, he has patience with that all day long, and he'll sit and
Right.
do video games all day. But it's difficult to watch him struggle with school, and I often wonder if it'd be better to take him out of school, social situations or not. I wonder if it'd be. I wonder how much happiness really matters on that scale, because I know he's not dumb.
Right.
But I don't want him to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think he's got enough smarts right now. He could probably go and work in a factory and be okay.
Yeah.
But we always want more for our kids.
Yeah.
We always want better than what we had.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I struggle with.
Yeah.
And with my oldest boy, watching him graduate was one of the best days of my life, because it was like, we did it. It wasn't, he didn't graduate by himself. And I made sure he knew that the day he graduated. I was like, hey, we did it. We got you through school,
Right.
and you're graduating today. Congratulations. And he acknowledged it, and he's like, man, I couldn't have done it without you guys.
Oh, that's amazing.
And yeah, so he's 20 now, right? Yeah, he just turned 20. And so he acknowledges now that he was an asshole in school. Like, we didn't have any behavioral issues out of him here either.
Yeah.
It was just at school. And he understands now, like, the consequences of his actions brought a lot of his misfortunes along. Like his decisions brought a lot of
Right.
his misfortunes, and he understands that now, and he understands the things he could be doing to make things better, and he also understands like, hey, I got plenty of time for that. So
Right.
he's happy living his best life, and I enjoy that for him. But when we always want more for our kids,
Yeah.
and he works in a factory. I don't see anything wrong with that. He's making really good money.
Yeah.
It does pay a lot more than it did when I was younger. Factories were not, they didn't pay very well. And now they actually understand that if we don't pay our people, they're not going to stay.
Right.
So I worry about what kind of world we're leaving for our kids.
Absolutely.
And being a stay-at-home dad, I lost all my friends. I don't,
Yeah.
everybody's busy, like while I'm at home doing nothing,
Yeah.
while I'm at home doing nothing, my friends are all at work,
Yeah.
and I really don't have anybody to talk to. So it was really nice that you had come and wanted to interact and wanted to come on the show. And I look forward to possibly having more conversations like this in the future. But it's very exciting to talk to somebody that's been through some of the things that I have,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that you're not alone. And
Yes.
I take for granted a lot of the things that we have. For instance, my wife had put on something on social media today that it's such a blessing to be washing or to be cleaning a house that's being dirtied by healthy children.
Yeah.
Stuff. I'm paraphrasing, but it was about being grateful for what we have versus being ungrateful for the things that we don't have.
Right.
And I struggle with that a lot because like there's so much more that could be had if I was able to go to work, if I was able to. And I
Right.
struggle because I'm a guy and I'm the provider, and
Right.
I still am. I still do the things a provider would do,
Right.
except I don't get paid for it,
Right.
and it doesn't get appreciated. And
Yeah.
while everybody says they appreciate it, they take advantage of it too. Like, I don't wash the dishes anymore. I haven't washed dishes in a long time. Like, and it's because our dishwasher broke and I got tired of washing dishes. My hand hurts my hands. And so my wife does all the dishes now, and she also does all the cleaning, but I do pretty much everything else. And we do like, we share chores and everything, taking care of the kids. It's really a group effort because taking care of our youngest is a full-time job by itself. He is a character. I tell you what, it's so fun. We didn't have a diagnosis till he was 2. I think he was like 2.5. And when he was diagnosed with autism, it wasn't one of those, oh no, what are we going to do?
Right.
It was, we more embraced it, and we were like, it makes sense,
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things. Now we know how to treat him,
Right.
because there's times where definitely get frustrated with communication.
Yeah.
Like when we don't know what he wants, it's very frustrating. Or when we're trying to teach him and he doesn't understand, it's
Right.
very frustrating. But at the end of the day, we have to remain calm, or else he won't remain calm.
Right.
And if he senses that we're getting angry, he'll flip out.
Yeah.
So
Yep. They definitely feel that frustration, and
yeah, and it hurts me to see that.
yes.
It's so, do you struggle with that too? Does it physically hurt you to watch your kids struggle?
Oh, I cry.
Yeah.
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 Just thinking about it right now, like I've cried. There's been times I've been walking through the grocery store crying
Yeah.
because it's when you're in the middle of a meltdown, how I see it is I have anxiety, and I know how when I get really, really anxious, I know how bad it feels.
Right.
And to watch my 5-year-old son struggle with that
Yes.
and feel the feelings that I know he's feeling,
Right.
it's like, that's the saddest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I don't want anybody to ever feel like that, especially my kids.
Right.
And I definitely don't want to be the cause of it. So
Right.
you gotta, it is a struggle figuring out, like when we take him to the grocery store, what it used to be is like we'd pass by something and he'd want it. And if he didn't get it, it caused a meltdown.
Yeah.
So we didn't understand what caused that. What
Right.
caused it was giving in to him. What caused the meltdowns in the first place was one day he got the thing he wanted, and the next time he didn't.
Yeah.
And so with a little bit of consistency, we work that down. He doesn't melt down like that anymore. There's sometimes he does, but he's really too big to ride in a cart now, so he has free reign to kind of lead us to where he wants us to go. So
Right.
we're teaching him, but it is a struggle to watch that anxiety build up in them
Yes.
and them not being able to communicate. And that's the most difficult part, is because it's like, what do you want? How can I
Right.
help you? And with some of the parent caregiver training that we're giving or getting is helpful for that. And we have you to thank for that. You helped us with that. And you had gave us some advice on how to get some services and stuff. And a lot of the resources that we have here are locked up away from us. We can't get access to a lot of the resources that we do have
Right.
because there's either a long ass waiting list, insurance doesn't cover it, or we're not qualified.
Or they have it in specific terms that if you don't know those terms.
Yes. And they don't volunteer that information to you. And it sounds like you want this. And I'm like, no, that's not what I want at all. But it sounds like you do. No. And that's
Yeah.
exactly how it went. And I'm like, looking back on it now, I'm such an idiot. I should have been like, you're absolutely right. That's what I want. Can you hook it up? And then once we called back, it was like, oh yeah, we remember you and we remember that conversation. We were trying to tell you, but we can't for legal reasons. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
It's like if somebody needs help, you should be able to help them no matter what. And I'm the type of guy, break a rule if you got to. Just tell me the information. It's like the FBI. When does the like if you see those movies where the FBI breaks rules sometimes?
Yeah.
That's true. They really do. I forgot where I was going with that, but that happens to me all the time. I have ADHD too. So, and that's a big part of the reason why I'm worried about if I have to homeschool.
Yeah.
I know I can do it. It's just putting into practice and actually getting it done.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to say whether I'd be good at it or not, but
Right.
I think I can make a go of it.
I had no idea if I would be good at it, but I knew the situation that we had. I felt it was necessary, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
They didn't, in public school, they didn't want to give him an IEP.
Yeah.
They didn't, like I struggled and I just was like, if I can go this route and he can get what he needs.
Yeah.
And
I've never had that experience. We've never had to fight for an IEP.
really,
Yeah, that's something they've always given. So we did with one son. He had diagnoses like my oldest son. He had diagnosis that was automatic qualifier, bipolar and ADHD. So he had that, and they didn't tell us. My ex-wife had a little bit of difficulty in the district she was in, but when I requested a meeting here, they gave me the meeting and he qualified right away with his diagnosis. So they're like, what do you want to do? And we'll set goals. And so we did that. And then I requested an IEP meeting for our middle son and he didn't qualify. And we understood why he didn't qualify, but he got speech therapy and stuff like that. So he got resources.
right.
And with our youngest son, he's autistic. So it's not, we got a diagnosis before he went to school. And
Yeah.
it wasn't difficult to get an IEP with him. But I have heard a lot of stories of parents, it was difficult for them to get IEPs.
So we originally got them because Wyatt was also diagnosed at 2. We originally got them. He was in preschool for a couple of years. Through preschool, he had the IEP. At the end of preschool, they tested him for an IEP for kindergarten.
Yeah.
And that's when they denied him the IEP. And then they offered a 504,
Yeah.
which I...
Not much different from an IEP. It's just not enforceable, I don't think.
Well, it is. I think it's just a little looser, if that makes sense. And then,
It's not as structured.
right. Well, and it's not. So like they're supposed to, I think, legally enforce it, but I don't think it's as like, I don't know how to say it, like the IEP is.
Right.
Like you'd get in a lot more trouble, I think, with an IEP.
Right.
I
IEP
believe.
stands for Individual Education Plan. And I do think there's legal protections protecting it that aren't
Yes.
with the 504.
Right. But I'm not big on just throwing out a bunch of like personal information about family or what I don't feel the school absolutely needs to know.
Yeah.
And so like that was kind of the thing. They gave me like this packet to fill out and said you had to qualify for a 504. But then when I would reach out, they're like, that's not quite how it's supposed to work.
Right.
And so like I went the homeschool route.
Right.
So
I've experienced a lot of people that are not qualified for their jobs. They go to college and they get that piece of paper, that degree, saying that they might be good at this job, and then they ultimately get jobs and they don't know how to do them, so they don't do them very well. I run into that all the time. People that don't know how to do their jobs and won't step down to let somebody that does know how to do it, and they mess up a lot of things. They really do. And then you talk to these people about your kids, and then you're like, look, people, you're in charge of the next generation. These kids are going to you're raising these kids to take care of you. The roads you drive on will be taken care of by the kids that you're raising up through schools now. The buildings that you live in are going to be built by the kids that you're raising up through these schools. Nobody thinks about that. Nobody thinks about the next generation of people that we are going to have to deal with.
right.
Like I know how, like I see spoiled ass, ungrateful, rude ass children everywhere. And it's like, we are in trouble. And I'm part of the millennial generation. I'm 39, so I've kind of straddled both Gen X and millennial, so I got qualities of both. So I'm with the millennial generation on that. These kids are the Zoomers, I think is what they call them, Generation Z.
Yeah,
Man.
something like that. Yeah.
I saw a meme the other day. I don't remember who sent it to me, but somebody sent me a clip. They should call the Zoomers the Zoomies. Zoomy generation, and dogs and cats go nuts. They get
Yeah.
the Zoomies. That's what they should call them because they have no attention span.
Yeah.
I don't. These are the young. Man, I love the generation coming up. I think they're gonna change the world. I think we might not like the world at first, but
Yeah.
I think they're gonna change the world. I think they're gonna teach people how to treat one another again.
Yeah.
And we're finding out the consequences of social media and the backlash and the electronics, always looking at your phone and stuff
Yeah.
like that. We are raising up a generation that can't talk to each other
Yeah.
without the aid of electronic devices. So you sit in a room full of kids and you tell them, talk to each other. Okay. They'll talk to each other face to face for a few minutes, and then they'll get on their phones and talk to each other.
Right.
Like, they'll start sending each other memes and,
Yeah.
Snapchats, and that's how they communicate with one another. And
Right.
we're doing that to our kids.
Yeah.
And the schools aren't really helping them by making them do all their work on their computers. And homeschool would be a little bit different because, like, you're at home with supervision and
Yep.
individual, like you're being watched and people
Yeah.
are. So I think that is a little bit different because, like, you were getting that interaction elsewhere. And so with this job, I invite people over. I talk to people all the time, and I want to get my kids involved in that as well.
Right.
And I do worry about that social aspect of the
Oh,
homeschool
yeah.
an awful lot. And I think I think it's what really, we're ultimately going to try high school at first and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And we told him, like, if you mess it up, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, we're going to pull you out and homeschool you.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to do it. But
Right.
I don't know of any other way to get him to buckle down. Like with my oldest son, it was pretty easy. He buckled down and did what he needed to do here at home. And I can't with the middle son, I can't get him to do that. Like, he will not do what I ask him to do while I'm looking at him. And so he's
Right.
completely different. Each kid is different.
Oh,
You have to
yeah.
raise them different. And he's more my wife's son. And so I let her deal with a lot of that stuff because it's like, if I talk to him, I'm going to be mean about it. And he doesn't
Yeah.
want me, I worry about him liking me all the time.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but
No, actually, I get it.
you're like that too. It's like I'm a disciplinarian all the time.
Yes.
And did your husband allow that too? Is that irritating?
Kind of, yeah. So
Do you I mean, maybe not irritating, but do you ever like look at your husband and like, for once, I don't want to be the bad guy?
yes, I do.
I do it all the time. I do, like, I wish you would just go over there and take care of that so I don't have to. And it's like, by the time mom takes care of it, it's already been going on about 10 minutes too long.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, somebody's got to do something or I'm going to freak out. So when daddy's happy, or when daddy's not happy, nobody's happy. So that's the way it runs here. We got a lot of role reversal in this house. I'm like the bitchy housewife and my wife works all the time. So like it is like, this is my house until they come home.
Yeah.
That's how it is. Like,
Yeah.
I live here when they're here. Like, I don't live here. This isn't my house until they're gone.
Yeah.
And then when they come back, it's like they walk in the house and everything's theirs again. And I lose control of the house. It's like, I'll have all the kids at home. Everything will be quiet. Mom will walk in the door and it's chaos.
Yep.
It's insane. I don't know how that happens. I think it is your fault. I don't know how it happens. And it's funny because I thought that I was the only one that felt that way. And
No, I get it.
it's great. That's awesome. Like, not awesome for you, obviously,
Right.
but awesome that I'm not alone.
No, I like to know that I'm not alone, too. So.
No, you're not alone. It's so weird because I'll be like, 30 seconds ago, this house was quiet. Everybody was being good. And now there is shit on the wall. And it really gets that crazy sometime. What? Yeah, everybody wants a snack. As soon as anybody walks in the door, can I have something to eat?
Oh my gosh.
It's like, man, I never knew these kids could eat so much.
I say all the time, so I have 10, 8, and 5. And I'm like, everybody talks about how it's going to be so much more expensive to feed them as teenagers.
Yeah.
And
If
I'm
you're
like,
struggling now, just wait.
yeah. And I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Like, in
And-
a few days, they've ate all their snacks.
So, yeah. Well, what though? I'll go to the store and I'll buy myself snacks, and I do the same thing with my snacks. They're gone within the first couple days, and then I don't have any snacks, and then I'll talk to my wife, and I'm like, man, I ate all my snacks. Now I got to eat healthy food. Who the hell wants to do that? But no, it's great. It's okay. But no, when we do things as a family, it's great. It's fun, but it sure is loud.
Do you
know.
have the struggle with finding, like, you want to, so like, for instance, me with my husband, like, I want to do stuff with the kids and with him, but I also want to try to find that time to do something where it's just me and him. But then, like, I kind of have that guilt thing when we're not with the kids because they don't get to see daddy as much. And you know what I mean?
Well, I don't worry so much about whether they see my wife or not. I don't really care about that. Like, she's in charge of that. Like,
Yeah.
So I know that she'd like to see the kids and be involved with the kids more than what she's able to because she's at work.
Right.
And I just kind of dump them on her when she gets home.
Yeah.
So it's, I'm like, here, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm going outside, and like just today I spent like an hour out there just doing nothing, because she's home, and she's like, well, you just sitting outside ignoring your family? I'm like, yeah.
Oh man, now I really can't wait for my husband to listen to this because he thinks that he's like, why are you sitting out on the porch? You're not doing anything.
It's fucking quiet out here. That's why.
Yeah,
And
because you can't even go to the bathroom. They're knocking on the door and hollering.
oh my gosh, I got some pictures I'll show you. I don't want to put them online or anything. I think
Right.
they are online. If anybody on my Facebook, they know, they've already seen this pictures. Rocket hanging from the bathroom door. My wife was in the bathroom. I think she was taking a shower, and my oldest son was here, so she locked the door. And so Rocket couldn't come in and show everybody her business.
Right.
And so I was out here smoking, and he walked in and walked out. And so he left the door open, and he was climbing, and he was hanging from the bathroom door trying to get it open. Let me in, freaking out.
Oh, yeah.
And he's in his underwear. It's so funny. And I was like, it's a good thing she locked that door, because he'd be in there right now. And now if she doesn't lock the door, he climbs in the shower with her. It's
Yeah.
funny. It's like, so I tell her, I'm like, hey, if you want to be in there alone, lock the door.
Yeah.
So,
Mine, you just jiggle the door just right, and it unlocks.
yeah.
So my daughter barges in all the time. Now my boys have gotten a lot better. I'm like, okay, you can't do this
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that kind of started, when they were a little bit younger, they do better. But my daughter, there is no shame in her game.
Yeah,
She barges
yeah.
right in there. She don't care.
There's no shame in our game. Like none of ours. So our blinds are broken because like our 2-year-old was hanging from them one day, and well, he's getting ready to turn 5 now, but he was 2 at the time.
Right.
But sometimes I'll just, not even thinking, I'll walk out of the bathroom because I forgot my towel or something, and then I'll look over, and then the blinds are wide open. I'm like, shit. I'm hoping nobody will look in, because I've got all my flab and fat hanging out, and and I don't want the neighbors to be offended.
Right.
Because I would be if I saw that. No, that is like, I do find it strange that people don't think like that with stay-at-home parents. Like, we never get a break.
No.
Like, we can't call in.
Yep.
Like, even if we get a free day, it's not really free, because at some point in that day, we'll have to do something for somebody else.
Yep.
And I don't get to take time out to focus on just myself all day in one day. And when we do go on vacation, we've never, ever been anywhere alone.
Yeah.
Like I take that back. We went to Tennessee one time for a graduation over a weekend, and we were freaking out the whole time we were gone, thinking about what are the kids doing. And it turns out that they were okay. They were alive when we got back, but none of them took showers. And they all stank when we came home. It was terrible. And they were at their grandmother's house.
And I think like when we say like we don't get a break, I think like we also don't get a break mentally.
Right. I can't shut it off.
Yeah.
I can't stop worrying about things in the house.
Right.
I can't. So, like on any average day, I'll have to, I'll be wanting to focus on the podcast, and I'll be talking to people online and stuff. And I'll look at my watch, and it's time to take somebody somewhere.
Yeah.
Or it's time to pick somebody up.
Right.
Or it's time to go to the store. Or it's time to do this, and it's time to do that. And it's like, man, I never get time to myself.
Yeah.
And so I do like, I take pride in mowing the lawn now.
Yeah.
Because I'm away from people, and I can be alone with my thoughts. I do help my wife with her second job. I go and I collect, I do things in that I make myself useful at her second job,
Yeah.
and make her job easier. And I don't get paid for that. She gets paid for that. So it's kind of, it is what it is.
Right.
But that gets me, I don't like it, but I do it because it makes her happy. It makes her job easier. And it gives me a chance to be away with my thoughts.
Yeah.
And then again, I can't shut my thoughts off ever.
Yeah.
Even when I'm listening to podcasts or when I'm
Yeah.
listening to music, that's sometimes when I'm alone is when I'm thinking the most.
Yeah.
And sometimes it gets a little dangerous, but no, I don't get to go out and do things or hang out with people, and I turn people down if my kids can't go.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
have a village really.
Right.
We have a couple parents, but between irresponsibilities and liabilities, we can't leave them with our parents.
Yeah.
So it's difficult because I've had offers, and it's just like, with our youngest son, like there are risks to taking care of him. And if I get a phone call while I'm in Florida because a kid ran away and got hit by a car or something, like not only would I be missing a kid, but I'd be missing a family member as well.
Yeah.
They don't understand, like, look, you're responsible for this human life,
Yeah.
and it's easy to fuck up, like, especially with autistic kids, and
Yeah.
I don't know what it is with boomers. They don't understand autism and they refuse to learn anything about them. It sucks because I'm like they don't like believe that autism is a thing.
Right.
And oh, the kid's just retarded. No, it's not like that, Grandma.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, like, because like it's misunderstood.
Or they confuse them with other
Yeah,
diagnoses.
yeah.
Right. Or just complete denial.
Yes, complete denial that there's like Rocket is really smart. He's brilliant, but he's got emotional issues.
Yep.
He's got communication issues.
Yep.
He's got social issues.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with how intelligent he is.
Right.
And I explain it. It's like something misfires in his brain sometimes. It's not all the time. He's not a freak or anything like that. He's not dumb.
Yeah.
He's just he's got a touch of the tism. That's what
Yeah.
we say. And it's so great because like people like they love him, but then then because of his personality, they kind of forget some of the things that he's capable of or not capable of. And it's like, listen, he will straight up walk away from you if you let him. And you if you're in a crowd, like, he has no fear. You have to understand that he has no fear.
Yep.
You have to keep on him. And
They don't, and some of them, they just don't understand danger. And-
yeah, he doesn't. He has no fear, and he doesn't understand danger. It's like walking across the street. We are teaching him,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but because so it's easy to teach a child that can communicate. It's easy. Like, you see that car will hit you.
Right.
But explaining that to my son with autism, he just doesn't understand it like that.
Right.
It doesn't click.
Right.
And you could tell him, and he understands the words that you're saying,
Right.
but he can't envision that car causing him danger.
Right.
And so he'll straight up walk out in the middle of the street. You
Yeah.
have to be quick enough because the word stop will make him move faster.
Right.
If he hears you say stop, you're not going to catch him.
Yeah.
So you might as well just give up and
Yeah.
not say anything at all. And then you both are in trouble. So
Right.
explaining that to people that, or people that may not have patience,
Yeah.
that do understand, that do know, but would be violent if, and I'm not saying that spankings don't work for some kids, but they won't work for this one. Like, he
Right.
doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand why you are hurting him.
Right.
And it's difficult because to explain that to the older generation, they're just like, no, I'll be all right, and this, that. No, it won't be.
Right.
It won't be until something bad happens. And then when something bad happens, I'm going to be very upset, and you can't take that back.
Right.
And so I'm very protective of my youngest son in particular because
Yeah.
he cannot take care of him. Like, he can take care of himself. He's self-sufficient, but he's 5.
Right.
And we call it more of an ability than a disability, but he has communication issues. There's communication disabilities there. There's social disabilities there. So we have to be his protectors because he won't protect himself.
Right.
And just explaining that to the older generation that just want to beat the shit out of him, you know,
Yeah.
it's difficult,
Yeah.
you know?
I get told, so my kids are very sensory when it comes to food.
Yeah.
And so trying to explain to,
And your sister-in-law is as well. She's got texture issues with food as well.
but trying to like explain to different people, they're like, oh, if they're hungry enough, they'll eat. No, they literally will
Yeah.
not.
Yeah,
Like,
he won't eat something he's not going to like.
yeah. And so they're like, well, you don't, you give them options. So that's why. No, like, because at first I thought that way because that was told to me when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Like, you eat what I make, da 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 da.
Or you don't eat at all.
Yeah, or you don't eat at all. And so at first, you know, I think we kind of almost sometimes do kind of what we learned growing
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Maybe
And-
not everything, but some things.
Or in my experience, I tend to go the opposite direction. So like if I was raised with a particularly heavy hand, so I tend to not discipline my kids until it's gone way past the point I should have. You know, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I overcompensate for the way I was raised.
Yeah.
And that causes me a little bit of a heartbreak sometimes. But
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I did try that at first, and I mean, it got to be like 10 o'clock at night and they still hadn't touched the food
Yeah.
on their plate. Now I didn't like force them to sit there
Yeah.
or anything, because
That's
I
not going to
couldn't.
do. Yeah, that's not going to do.
I
any good
couldn't
anyway,
even if
yeah.
I wanted to. And so, and it would have got me like, my 8-year-old, he still gags to certain textures.
Yeah.
You know, but we now that they're a little older, we like compromise. If you take at least a little bite of that,
Yeah.
you know, I'll give you a peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
Because they like that. Or, you know, something like
So
those.
we are really, we're really, I got lucky. And so my wife doesn't mind cooking. She'll cook 4 different meals if she has to.
Yeah.
Like I got lucky in that department that she's willing to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Not just for the kids. She'll do it for me too.
Yeah.
So like if I don't like what they're eating, I'm like, can I have something else? And she'll cook me something else.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we, in our experience, like I've not really been like that. So my mom, when I was younger, made me eat what was on my plate.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't stop until I was done.
Mm-hmm.
And the plate was clean. She did that for a little while. And then as I got older, she stopped doing that. But I already had a food addiction. Like, food comforted me, and I had a different relationship with food. I think not because of that, but I think it didn't help.
Right.
And so I kind of let my kids. They do eat healthy things, like when we're like they like green beans. We do have healthy things that they do like, but I'm not gonna like if we're having Brussels sprouts and they don't like them, I'm not gonna force it on them. You know what I
Right.
mean? And I think that's where we're a lot different than a lot of folks we're like that with all the kids, not just with not just one with autism.
Right.
So, like there'll be periods of days at a time where he won't hardly eat, but little bites here and there. But then like for 3 or 4 days solid, he'll eat everything in sight,
Yeah.
you know? So, but he does have his like safe foods is what we call them. Like his foods that he'll eat anytime. And now like one of those foods is odd. It's really terrible for him, but he likes McDonald's.
Yeah.
So if we ever get worried that he won't eat, which has never happened.
Right.
If we ever get worried that he won't eat, like we'll just think, you want a Happy Meal?
Right.
He'll eat it for sure. But texture issues is a big thing that people don't understand. I could see that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we always with textures is with our son touching people.
Yeah.
Like he touches people and things.
Yeah.
And it's like I feel terrible because I'm like, don't do that. And then
I know. I'm like always like personal space, guys.
Yes,
And because you
most
feel
of the
like you're
time.
supposed to teach them that,
yes,
you know?
yes.
So at least
but-
I do, I guess I should say that.
You're right. You're right. And because you are supposed to teach him personal space and boundaries, but it's like
Right.
he's 5. Again, it's
Right.
like, how do you teach that to somebody that doesn't understand the concept of personal space?
Right.
You know, it's a foreign concept to him because
Yep.
he doesn't care if you're up in his face. You
Right.
know, he doesn't care if you touch his leg. You know,
Yeah.
he doesn't care if you rub his arm, and you
Right.
know, and those are the things that he does. He'll see something in somebody's pocket and he'll touch it.
Yeah.
And like they're just standing there, and like if they're getting ready to walk across the street or something, like at a crosswalk, he'll see them and he'll see what's in their pocket and he'll just rub it. You know, and then that makes him look weird, but he's 5.
Right.
And I don't stop him usually. Like, I'll try to intervene if I can catch him or something. I'll be like, well, we don't touch people.
Right.
But usually by the time I catch him, he's already done it. And
Right.
so I wait to see their reaction before I intervene. And I've never had a negative reaction. I've
Yeah.
never had anybody say, don't touch me, or I've never had anybody like be mean to him. It's always
Right.
been, they understand. And I don't often have to say he has autism.
Right.
That's not something I like to say because I don't want to point that out
Yeah.
unless they pick up on that. But most of the time you could tell.
Yeah.
Like it's something sometimes he'll bend down and touch things on the street as we're
Yeah.
walking by, and it sucks in the middle of a crosswalk, but
Right.
sometimes you have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, and because he's not going to, he won't, if he sees something in a crosswalk that he wants to touch, you won't get him past that point without a mini meltdown unless he gets to touch that.
Right.
You know? Mm-hmm. And so we've gotten quite good at dealing with meltdowns. We just pick him up and go. But it's dealing with those things in the heat of the moment, how to deal with those things that we were struggling with. And it would cause arguments, quite frankly, between my wife and I, because I'm like, you have to address that and you have to address it now.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the correct way to handle it. It was the correct way to handle it was not what I was doing, and it wasn't what she was doing either. So
Right.
through parent caregiver training, we had learned the best way to deal with it is to ignore it. Ignore
Yeah.
the behavior, not the person. So if he's trying to get your attention, and we've learned, I can see that you need something. What do you need?
Yeah.
And address it properly without giving in to demands, without giving in to bad behaviors and stuff like
Right.
that. So learning that stuff it's a challenge to deal with it in the heat of the moment, but it's working. Oh my goodness,
Yes.
is it working? And we were just talking to our parent caregiver trainer the other day, and I was like, I can see the changes already
Yeah.
with just these few things that we've learned
Yeah.
and implemented. It's not been very much or very long but just these few things have made immense changes. I feel like I have my son back.
Yeah.
I was just saying outside before we came in to record, I think that asshole phase is over or almost over. And the reason why I say that is because, man, he was unpleasant to be around for a while. And it wasn't that he was unpleasant. He was smiling and happy and stuff like that, but he would not behave.
Yeah.
He was being naughty on purpose, and I didn't know how to handle it. And it's like,
So did that stem from like a communication, like him
Yes.
having trouble? Because so
Yes.
my oldest son was a headbutter.
yeah,
And when I wasn't understanding what he wanted,
he would get
he
very
would-
upset.
Yeah, and he would headbutt things. And, of course, I was an emotional little thing about that because he's my first son. He's headbutting,
Yes.
and we learned the redirect approach when it came to like headbutting.
Yeah.
And so we did that. And as his communication improved, the headbutting stopped.
Yeah.
But that was super hard.
Yeah, we haven't had anything like headbutting. There's been a couple instances where he's gotten frustrated enough to hit himself
Yeah.
with his hands, but the way I reacted, he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
I wasn't mean.
Right.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
It hurt me that he'd be willing to hurt himself.
Right.
And so I was like, no, we don't do that. And he was young enough to where I've seen him do it twice.
Yeah.
So he doesn't do it very often. It's not in his repertoire of weapons that he uses, as
Right.
mass destruction or whatever. I don't even know how to describe his meltdowns sometimes, because they're not even bad to deal with anymore. It's just like frustrating because you're like, what do you want? Why are you doing this? And it's usually something silly,
Yeah.
that it's just, and oftentimes it's something. So he has the words to articulate. It often is times that he has the words to articulate, but when he gets frustrated,
Yep.
he can't. It's like he'll be wanting a glass of water, and he'll come in and he'll point. What do you want? And then by that time, it's like, you know what I want. You better get it. It's
Yeah.
like that. You get that look, but it's like, no, use your words. What
Yeah,
do
use
you
your
want?
words. That's a big thing in our house.
Yeah, and so he'll come, water. I want water.
Yeah.
And what was that? I didn't quite hear you. I want water, Dad. And it's like that. So we do have those issues with communication, frustration, and getting but it is getting better. And
Yeah.
now that I know how to approach things in a different way to get him to understand,
Right.
I don't understand what this means. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's communication between, he knows how to get us better too.
Right.
He's getting something out of this as well.
Right.
And our parent caregiver trainer said he'd go to accompany us to Walmart. He'd go to IEP meetings with
Yeah.
us if we want. And so that's a great thing that I didn't know existed. I didn't know help like that was available.
Yeah.
And we were so frustrated because we didn't have access to so many things.
Right.
We, after our initial diagnosis of our son, it was like, well, that's it. They just gave us a diagnosis and they're going to help.
They gave
what
me
does
a
this
big
mean?
packet of resources, but I was like, where do I start?
Yeah.
So I just started, I went into it when he got diagnosed with autism and everything. My mom was kind of in the denial thing.
Yeah.
And I just jumped right into, okay, I'm going to start figuring out what these resources are and what to do.
Right.
And I found it challenging to find people who would help. I would
Yeah.
have other people say, oh, I know so-and-so, her son has autism,
Yeah.
or their daughter has, and I would reach out to them and kind of ask, and I wouldn't get a lot of response. It wasn't
And I think it's because a lot of people don't know, they don't have resources themselves.
yeah,
And they don't know where to go. They don't know
Right.
how to obtain resources. And it's not that I'm not smart enough to figure out what to do.
right.
I know how to find resources, just there's none available.
There really is. There's not.
And then you find the resources, and they've got so many. They're inundated with patients. They're
Yeah.
inundated with students. And then you're like, well, the appointments need to be every week, and you can only get us in once every 6 months. How is that conducive to therapy? How is that
Right.
going to help? That's almost a hindrance.
Right.
And that's where the parent caregiver training comes in handy, is because they're teaching us.
Yes.
They're teaching us how to be the best advocate for our kids.
Right.
And they're like, well, there's resources out there. You just got to know how to find them.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of AI for work purposes, but AI for adaptive technology. Oh my God, I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
I think, because I talk to Meta's chatbot like it's my best friend now. It'd be very helpful in the adaptive technology arena.
Yeah.
But I don't know why they don't push these things that way. Because think about, I didn't even know adaptive technology was a thing until I had a son with autism and he
Right.
was diagnosed. I didn't know that there was a thing that was called adaptive technologies
Right.
that help disabled people of all kinds, not just people with autism, but
Right.
people, that struggle with walking or talking or, just adaptive technologies for all disabilities.
Right.
I didn't know that was a thing. Why don't they advertise that,
Yeah.
Like, why don't they, I bet there'd be a lot of money in it if they push that and be like, okay, well, there's this whole group here that doesn't have resources. And you look at the autism rates. I mean, we could argue about them being caused by certain things, but let's be honest, the autism rates are going up.
Yep.
And because they are going up, that's a whole group of people that are going to need services that aren't getting them.
Right.
I don't understand why they don't pour the resources in to try to get the money out of people like me, because I would pay for it.
Yeah.
I would go into debt to pay for resources. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
I would go into debt to buy a car. Why wouldn't I do that for my son? I mean,
Right.
obviously I would. So I don't think they're pushing the adaptive technology with AI as far, like, because I think digital assistants are going to help out quite a bit with autism,
Yeah.
because just having, so let's picture in a world where one of your boys is like, so let's just say they're 25 and they're going down a hallway and their coworker passes by them and says something really smart, or smart alecky. And you know that your son doesn't have the ability to pick up on certain things, and sarcasm.
Sarcasm's a
Yeah.
hard one. Yep.
So as he's walking down this hallway and this coworker says something smart alecky, he could be carrying something in his pocket with an earpiece that could give him a prompt that says sarcasm,
Right.
and he would be like, good one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
Right.
Think about that we have that power in our pockets.
Right.
It is already capable of doing these things.
Right.
Why wouldn't they push that? Why wouldn't they? I mean, you can't get that. Like,
Right.
but it is, the capability is there, but there's no application for it. Like
Right.
they don't push the application because I don't know. I don't know why.
I don't know.
I can get a digital assistant. You can get a digital assistant, but have something like, Hey Google, for somebody that's autistic, it doesn't exist.
Right.
It's strange.
It is.
But I
Yeah.
think it's going to be great. And the more they develop it and everything, and I'm going to reach out actually to Meta sometime soon and try to get somebody on this podcast and talk about adaptive technologies and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
That would be really cool.
I think if I could get an audience with some of those people and get them to be like, hey, like, this is a whole untapped market here. Let's go
Right.
after it. I think if you talk to them in the sense of dollars and
Yeah.
be like, hey, you can charge insurance companies for this.
Right.
They'll pay. I think that we would benefit each other by being friends, because
sure.
I don't have any adults to talk to either. And the adults that I do have to talk to, they don't know anything about kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
They don't get my Bluey references or.
I don't watch Bluey either, to be honest with you. I'm like, but there is, I do like Bluey, but there's one one episode I was watching. I was like, what the hell did that dog just say? It was, I've got bumwums. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. Like, we don't have any friends. Like, we have very few friends. The friends that we do have, they mean the world to me. And Lindley, my buddy Lindley's my best friend. He's old enough to be my dad, ironically.
My best friend is actually my dad's age.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And we met online.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I met my wife online. That's how we met. But and then now 17 years later, we are here talking to you on a podcast. It's been a great conversation. I really had fun. And I can definitely appreciate coming and talking to me about homeschool and what that's like for you guys. And I know we didn't get in the nitty and gritty of it. I do want to talk about it more in like an in-depth, like, how is it going type of thing. I know we got plenty of time to be on the podcast in the future, but I'm really thankful for you stopping by. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And with that, I think we're going to let you guys out of here. Thank you for stopping by. Like, subscribe, and share. Bye.